3 a.m. is not just the middle of the night. Something happens at this exact hour that most people sleep right through. And if you've ever woken up at 3 a.m. with no reason, no alarm, nothing, you need to hear this. There's a reason why 3 a.m. keeps showing up across cultures, across religions, across thousands of years of history. It's not random. It's not a coincidence. And it's definitely not just your body deciding to mess with your sleep. People call it the devil's hour. Others call it the hour of God. Some call it the witching hour. But what is actually going on at 3 in the morning, spiritually? And why does prayer at that hour hit different? That's exactly what we're going to get into right now. Here's the thing most people don't talk about. A lot of people wake up at 3 a.m. and feel something. They can't explain it. Maybe it's an uneasy feeling. Maybe it's a heaviness in the room. Maybe it's their heart racing, and they don't know why. Or maybe, and this one's interesting, maybe it's a deep pull, almost like something is calling them to get up. And most people, they just roll over and go back to sleep. They don't realize that the moment they feel that pull, that's actually an invitation, not from darkness, from God. But because no one ever taught us what 3 a.m. actually means, we miss it, we waste it. We let it pass like any other hour of the night, and then we wonder why our prayers feel dry, why we don't feel a connection, why it feels like our words are hitting the ceiling and bouncing right back. What if the problem isn't your faith? What if the problem is that you've been praying at the wrong time, or worse, sleeping through the most powerful window the day has to offer? Let's break this down. First, what even is 3 a.m.? From a purely physical standpoint, 3 a.m. sits right in the center of what scientists call the deepest sleep cycle. Your body temperature is at its lowest. Your mind is at its most quiet. The world outside is almost completely still. There's less noise, less distraction, less mental traffic than at any other hour of the day. Now think about that from a spiritual angle. If prayer is about connection, real, raw, honest connection with God, then wouldn't a moment where everything is stripped away, where your mind is finally quiet, where the world stops screaming at you, be the perfect time to hear and be heard? Of course it would, but it goes deeper than just quiet. The history of the 3 a.m. prayer, this is not a new concept. This goes back thousands of years. In the Bible, there are multiple moments where God moves in the middle of the night. The Psalms are full of people crying out to God at midnight, in the dark, when there was nothing left but them and God. Psalm 119:62 says, "At midnight I rise to give you thanks." That's not symbolic. That's someone actually getting up in the dead of night to pray. The early Christians, not the modern, comfortable version of Christianity, but the early believers who were being persecuted, who were risking their lives, they prayed at night. They gathered in secret in the dark hours because they understood that when the world sleeps, the spirit is awake. And in many traditions around the world, not just Christianity, there is a deep understanding that the veil between the physical world and the spiritual world is thinnest at night, at 3 a.m. specifically. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Why 3 a.m. and not 2 a.m. or 4 a.m.? There are a few different ways people look at this. One perspective comes from a specific belief around the death and resurrection of Jesus. The understanding is that Jesus died at 3 p.m., and so 3 a.m., exactly 12 hours later, is seen as the opposite of that moment. The darkest, most spiritually charged hour. The hour when the enemy is most active, but also, and this is key, the hour when God's power is most available to those who call on it. Think about it this way. A lion doesn't need to be out in the middle of the day when everyone is watching. A lion hunts at night when prey is vulnerable, off guard, unaware. And spiritually, the same logic applies. The forces of darkness move when people are asleep, when they're not praying, when they're not aware. But here's the flip side of that. When you get up at 3 a.m. and you pray, you become the one who is awake when everyone else is sleeping. You are the watchman on the wall. You are the one who is alert when the enemy expects you to be knocked out. That changes everything. What actually happens when you pray at 3 a.m.? Let's talk about what people actually report experiencing when they commit to praying at this hour. The first thing most people notice is clarity. At 3 a.m., there's no phone notifications, no emails, no pressure, no one asking you for anything. It's just you and God. And in that kind of silence, things that were blurry start to come into focus. Decisions that felt impossible start to make sense. Answers to problems you've been carrying for weeks just come. That's not magic. That's what happens when your mind is clear and your spirit is open. The second thing people notice is that prayers at 3 a.m. feel more honest. Not because God is more awake at 3 a.m., God never sleeps, but because you are different at 3 a.m. You're tired. Your guard is down. The mask you wear during the day is off. You're not trying to impress anyone. It's just you in the dark, being real. And that kind of raw, honest prayer is the kind that moves things. The third thing, and this one is powerful, is a sense of spiritual authority. There's something about choosing to get up, choosing to sacrifice sleep, choosing to put God before your own comfort that builds something in you. It builds a kind of boldness, a confidence, because you know you've paid a price. You know you've showed up when it was hard. And that changes how you pray. You stop begging and you start declaring. You stop asking with doubt and you start praying with expectation. The difference between people who pray at 3 a.m. and people who don't, I want to be honest here. I'm not saying praying at 3 a.m. is the only way to have a powerful prayer life. It's not, but there is something consistently different about people who have committed to this practice over time. They carry a kind of peace that doesn't make sense given what they're going through. They have a strength that isn't earned from the gym or from willpower alone. They navigate hard seasons with a stability that other people can't explain. Why? Because they've built a relationship, not just a habit, a real, consistent, daily relationship with God in the most intimate hours of the day. And just like any real relationship in your life, the time you give to it, the consistency, the willingness to show up even when you don't feel like it, that's what makes it deep. Praying once when life falls apart is one thing. Showing up every morning at 3 a.m., day after day, even when things are good, even when you're tired, even when you don't feel anything at first. That's what builds a prayer life that actually changes things. Here's the moment I want you to really sit with. Most people's prayer life looks like this. Something goes wrong. They pray hard, things get better. They stop praying as much. Things get hard again. They go back to praying. It's a cycle, a desperate cycle. But the people who pray at 3 a.m., they break that cycle. Because they're not praying from desperation. They're praying from position. There is a massive difference between praying because you need something and praying because you know who you are and who God is. 3 a.m. prayer, when done consistently, when done with real intention, moves you from the first kind to the second kind. You stop being someone who prays when life is hard and starts being someone who prays because prayer is who you are. And when you are that kind of person, when prayer is your lifestyle and not your emergency plan, things don't just get better when you pray. Things stay better. Your whole life starts to carry a different weight, a different direction, a different level of peace. That's what the 3 a.m. hour can do for you. Not instantly, not magically, but over time, consistently, it changes you from the inside out. So let's bring this together. 3 a.m. is not the devil's hour. That's a lie, or at best, only half a truth. Yes, it is spiritually charged. Yes, there is activity in the spiritual world at this hour. But that means it's your hour too. It's the hour where your prayers carry weight, where the silence amplifies your connection, where God meets the one who was willing to get up when everyone else stayed asleep. The people who have built this practice across thousands of years, across every culture, every religion that takes prayer seriously, They all point to the same thing. The night watches are sacred. The early hours are powerful. The time you spend with God in the dark is what prepares you to walk in the light. And if you've been waking up at 3 a.m. lately, don't brush it off. That could be exactly what it feels like. A call, an invitation, a knock on the door of your spirit. The question is what you do with it. Will you roll over and go back to sleep, or will you answer? If this hit you, subscribe, because there's more coming that you don't want to miss.